Good morning, everyone. This is Gary Kay, and welcome to a special video edition of my Rants and Raves podcast. We're going to do a demo. We're going to explain to you all about the Nureva Span Workspace. We talk a lot about the Span. I use the Span in my classroom at the University of North Carolina. We're putting in a Span in our brand new offices that we're moving into in 2019 here at Rave. And I'm excited to be joined by Rick Kennedy, Nureva's Director of Customer Experience. Rick, how are you?
Just great, Gary. Thanks.
Well, thanks for joining me. We're connected to Canada. You're in a room with a Span system and an HDL 300, which is what we're using for audio on your end. Talk a little bit. First off, introduce everyone that doesn't know what Nureva Span is and what the workspace is.
Sure. So I'll talk about a couple things. First of all, I'll talk about audio just before we jump into the Span system. And the reason being is because I can be anywhere in this room, and it's a fairly large room, probably 25 feet long, or so feet wide. And the whole idea here is I can be anywhere in this room. I can walk around. I can be at the interactive wall and collaborating. Everyone can hear me who's remote. So it provides that kind of functionality. The Span system in particular, we'll start off with this is the type of wall that I'm standing at. So I have a large interactive wall, which is 15 feet wide, 4 feet high. So it gives me lots of screen real estate. So I can bring lots of content in. But one of the critical things about the system is I can be anywhere on any device and collaborating effectively, real time, or either synchronously or asynchronously. So I can be on a tablet, I can be on a smartphone, or I can be on a laptop, and I can be interacting directly with people who are in this room interacting at the wall. So there's a lot of different ways to connect and collaborate. And here's an example of this is just simply a large interactive display. Again, it's just another endpoint as far as our software is concerned. And as you can see, I can scroll across, and I have lots of content here. It's essentially a horizontal canvas up to 200 feet wide. So I can have lots of content here. And so, the first question is why do people use this? Well, fundamentally, there's two things that organizations see value in. Number one is to get better results. And how do they get better results? First of all, I can adapt this in terms of the workflows to my own business challenges. And so I'm not constrained by what the software requires me to do. I can actually design my own workflow. I can contribute from anywhere on any device. I can improve transparency by making this available to just by inviting them into this canvas. And to that point, I can even invite senior executives or a CEO in as view only, so they can't actually change something, but they can view it, so they can get live updates.
In fact, I'm actually connected to this canvas now, and I can post a note here. I'm gonna just since you're there, I'm gonna post a little note here, and it'll appear on your canvas. There you go. So I just said hello.
Once here, of course, I can move it around, or Gary can move it around.
Yeah, I can move it myself by just moving the mouse around. And so I'm actually collaborating with just a Safari browser into the canvas, but I can also do it with my phone, which I've done in my class as well, where I've sent content. You can send a note, collaborate remotely, or while in the room, multiple people. I think maybe 10 can be touching it at the same time.
No, actually 20 on each one. So we can have a lot of people up at this wall.
Okay.
More than is practical to be standing at this large surface.
Yeah, I love this product. It's like you said, it's like a big digital canvas, virtual 200 foot wide canvas, and you can display as much of it as you want. In your case there in your room, it looks like you have 2 projectors, so I guess you're displaying about 20 feet of it.
Yeah, this is 15 feet I can see at one time, but I can actually stitch more of these together. So I could put up to 8 of these to create up to a 60-foot wall. So I can wrap the room in fact into interactivity.
Yep, and this is basically like a big digital canvas, and the collaboration is very simple. So sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No worries, Gary. So one of the other things that people look for is speed. They want to be able to improve. One of the things about this, because this is cloud-based, it's always on, always available from any device, from anywhere. And one of the values of that is to be able to not have to wait for people to get together and schedule a meeting, and particularly if it's a large group of folks who need to get together in a room, it can be challenging. this technology allows you to start anytime from anywhere. So it basically opens it up so that it eliminates lag. I've got a couple of examples here, and I'll just show you, and these are blurred for confidentiality because these are actually real examples of what people are doing with the system. And so there's 3 of them. The top one is a design session. And as you can see, there's lots of imagery and image artifacts in the canvas. So that's one example. The one in the center is actually an Agile Workflow. So it uses a combination of empathy map and customer journey map, and ultimately into an agile process of managing a particular project. The bottom one is actually one of our internal sessions, and as you can see, there's not only a lot of notes in here in terms of actions. We use color to identify, whether something it has meaning. It might be particularly important, so we change color. But also the ability to bring in other types of resources. As you can see, there's spreadsheets and graphs and other things that can be brought in. And that information is great for context when reviewing this particular project. So as you can see, that the design is quite different depending on how the technology is used. And then what I'll do is I'll just go into a few sort of.
So the bottom one is like middle's agile project management. The bottom one's more like traditional project management.
That's right. So it essentially is our go-to-market sessions that we have every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we have a collection of about 15 people that join that session, both remotely because we have folks in Europe as well as here in Calgary, and we collaborate together on that project. And it basically improves accountability. People are making commitments in terms of what they need to be able to do, and so on.
Yeah, I'm moving around your text. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It's the advantage of being able to collaborate remotely. So what I've identified is some of the key ways in which our customers are using our technology. And what I've done is I've provided some examples of images, and in this particular case for consulting or facilitation. An example would be developing a strategic plan or something like that. One of the things that the technology enables is the ability to create customized templates. So you can, again, create your own workflows. So if we take this type of process, and this has obvious constraints, everybody has to be in the same room, same time, and so that's a bit of a challenge. Well, what if you could do this type of work anywhere, anytime? And so the ability to create a custom template, and this is just simply a variety of different technologies and how those technologies might affect our business. So this is an example of how a consultant might use this in a real environment. And so I can actually move things around. We can have a discussion about what's appropriate.
And in my case, I'm moving stuff around as well. I'm moving robotics over to the future consideration.
Right. So, this is very simple to create these types of custom templates. And that's why consultants love this technology, is because they can take their own intellectual property and sort of convert it into this type of a form and capitalize on the advantages that the technology can provide. So a second use case is design. In this particular case, this is design around construction, but it gives you a sense for the different types of resources and artifacts that can be brought in. And so an example is this, bringing up a Google map and doing a site plan. And this brings up the satellite image and then a zoomed in version. But I can also set up things like links. So I can jump into another application, and it'll take me to that. As you can see, I've got an error in the. But what I can do is I can attach a link here to, and let's just add it, maps. Google.com. And so once I execute that, it'll bring me to Google Maps, and then I can navigate with Google Maps. Now, essentially, so I can navigate, I can move around, I can zoom in and zoom out, so I can do those types of things. But what that allows me to do is to make the canvas more three-dimensional. So I can jump in and bring other resources into this. And that's one of the key.
Because it's Windows compatible, any Windows app can basically be brought into the canvas for the most part.
That's right. And then once I bring that application up, and by the way, I use Google Maps as an example, but that could be AutoCAD, it could be three-dimensional model. It could be any type of application. Once it's here, I can do two things. I can capture from it, so I can capture an image, bring it into the canvas as a permanent artifact, but I can also share that so that you and everybody else who's connected to this particular canvas can see that content live. So again, it makes the whole idea of three-dimensional, and you can see in a design session, you would be bringing in a lot of different types of resources, artifacts, and other things. Yep. One of the other things we could also do is if I wanted to open something up and mark it up, you can do the same thing. So I can mark it up at the same time as you. So if you double tap on that object, we can be marking up together.
I think I double tapped on the word site planning. Hold on here.
Okay, so
there you go. I'll do it. There you go. So I'm drawing a little circle here. I'm doing a bad job of marking it up, but
yeah, but
there's my circle.
You get the idea. So the whole idea is we can actually have a conversation like this while we're actually both marking up something simultaneously. So it allows us to co-create, which is sort of critical in the design process. And higher education, I know this is something you're very familiar with, Gary, in terms of some of the critical challenges that we see in education. And these are some examples of some of the deployments that we have in higher education. There's a couple of critical things up on the top in blue. Creating interactivity within the classroom has all kinds of benefits in terms of getting students engaged in the learning process, leading to active learning design classrooms, designed specifically around active learning. And then the second thing is extending the classroom. And what I mean by that is the ability to bring others into the discussion. So,
and I use it for all three of those purposes. Actually, I'm a good example of all three, because that way students can collaborate remotely if they're in their dorm room, or if they're unable to make it to class. I can have guest speakers come in and collaborate on projects. I use it as an active learning piece, and then also it does add interactivity, so students have to get up and participate in the class.
And just one further comment on extending the classroom. You can imagine if I have a classroom like this one and another classroom here in a different place, they could be looking at the same thing, same time. So you can actually have two classrooms, multiple locations. So if you have a subject matter expert who's a scarce resource, which is in this case you, Gary, you would be able to extend out so that you can actually have a satellite classroom involved in the discussion. So you can imagine the possibilities with something like that.
Yep.
One other example is its use in Agile and Scrum, and this is an example. And I know this is we're doing this very quickly, but this is an example of a typical analog Scrum board where there's a backlog, there's user stories, tasks to do, work in progress, tasks done, and so on. Basically, what we've done is just create an example of how you might do that in a digital environment. So this is an example where we have a user story partially filled in. I can complete this. Once I'm done, I then drag that story in here, and I probably am going to need to break that down into individual tasks. And then once I've done that, I may want to go into go in with the team and determine what are the priorities based on business value and level of effort, and where should we place that particular object. What that'll do is help inform where we go to the next phase, which is let's develop or let's design the next sprint. So where do we go from there? So I have my user stories, I have all the individual tasks along with the status of where they are in the process. And then finally, I have an example of this would be a simple retrospective. What went well, what could be improved, both in terms of people, process, and technology, and then actions. And then one of the things about this is all of this information, depending on where it's stored, which box it's in, we export this out so that that information goes out in an Excel document, which organizes the content based on the box that it's sitting in.
Is that a custom template, or is that a built-in template that does that?
No, this was created with PowerPoint. So we created the framework in PowerPoint, and what we do is we put intelligent groups on top.
Okay.
of the image. And that essentially creates a template.
Okay. Very interesting. And I think a lot of people could benefit from this as just a project management piece.
Yeah. And then we've got one other application where we see a lot of interest in our technology. And as you can see, there's this is lean construction, but it fundamentally at its core is lean. So it's about managing a particular task and process. And so as you can see, the whiteboards in all of these cases are, that's your framework. So that's something that you have the ability to design within the SPAN system. And then the artifacts are the in this case, Post-it notes. And we use a combination of notes, but also custom images in order to recreate this in a digital environment. And so you can imagine the impact. These images, everyone has to be in the same room at the same time in order for that to work. And that's problematic in a construction project where the construction trailer might be a mile away from the actual work being done. So that issue of being able to connect on any device, I can be on a tablet right at where the work's being done, and I have access to the relevant information if this is in digital form. And this is just a simple example of what that might look like.
And the nice thing about this, for those that haven't caught on, they can see that set of Post-it notes, and notes, I should say, for each zone, both on a tablet and a desktop computer, as well as their phone. They can pull it up as well. Yeah.
And not only can they view it, they can actually modify it.
Yeah, they can edit it.
Okay.
I can move one now.
Exactly.
So there you go. So, yeah, and this is a great demo. I think a lot of people don't realize, you don't have a feel for how important or how revolutionary the concept of using a digital canvas as a focal point is until you start using it. Like it's almost like you don't know you need it until you've started using it, and then you realize how much you needed it. I kind of have, kind of compared this to things like when the iPhone was invented, when Steve Jobs held it in front of everybody's like, well, we already have a phone. But then when you started playing around with it and you realized, well, it's more than a phone. It's also a little computer, and it's also a web browser, and it's also a change calculator. It's also a flashlight. Then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this thing is awesome. It replaces, oh, and by the way, it's a camera. So it replaces 2 or 3 things that I was using before. This is the same kind of thing. It replaces a whiteboard, it replaces a projector, and it replaces the software tools required for project management and teaching.
And the interesting thing, Gary, is people have their own way of doing things. And I'll use lean as an example. In any lean Kanban, if you look at Kanbans from different organizations within a large company, everyone's different. Everyone's unique to the process. And that ability to create your own workflow and design your own templates is critical to these processes. Because you can see even in lean construction, there's 4 examples. They're similar, but they're all different.
Yeah.
And that's an important consideration, to be able to design according to how you need to be able to work.
Yeah, and this is all, you can see all this at nureva.com, nureva.com. And we've been talking about the Nureva SPAN workspace. And it's constantly updated. By the way, our SPAN gets software updates all the time. New features are added to it, and it does it on its own. All of a sudden, you turn it on, there's a new function, which is nice. I know that there's a way to make it where you automate that, or also make it where you have to do it. You have to make it as an action. But I like the fact that it's automatically updated. And when you added templates, I think that was either earlier this year or late last year, that really changed everything for us. Because before that, you sort of had to use the stuff that you had already there. But the fact that you have the ability to do customized templates now is a big game changer.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I've been talking to Rick Kennedy. Rick is the Director of Customer Experience at Nureva. Rick, thank you very much for joining me. To get more information on Nureva SPAN, go to nureva.com and go to the SPAN link. And the HDL300 is the audio. If you don't mind pointing up to that, Rick, so you can see where that is in the room. It's in between the 2 SPAN systems. There, it's a little black. It looks like a sound bar. That's the HDL300. That's the audio system he's been using. Of course, I've been using my handy-dandy microphone here. And by the way, the reason I was looking multiple directions as he's working is I've got multiple monitors here. So I actually have the span session that he's using open on my desktop in real time, simultaneous while being on this Zoom conference. So that's sort of how we were collaborating. And for all my AV friends out there, I apologize for wearing a checkered shirt today. Cannot believe I actually did that for a video call, because I do know I should not have worn a checkered shirt. So thanks for struggling along through my checkered shirt day, and thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and you can see all of our podcasts and videocasts at ravepubs.com.